Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kid Stories Podcast. I'm Phil Bechtel. Let's get into some shout-outs. Quinn and Scarlett from Stanwood, Washington are big fans. I think if you two were characters from the stories, you'd be wizards who turn yourselves into frogs so you can enter into the frog-riding chicken races. Thanks for listening, Quinn and Scarlett. And Sid from Penticton drew an awesome scene featuring some characters from the stories. Thanks for that, Sid. I think if you were a character in the story, you'd be the master of the Tree Beast Dojo, where you would grow tree beasts and train them to be ninjas. Thanks for listening, Sid. Today's episode is titled, The Dangers of Reading. William and Dylan scanned the shelves for books they wanted to take home. Luckily, their local library had thousands and thousands of kids' books to choose from. "Hey, what's that?" William asked, noticing an unfamiliar book in Dylan's hands. "Oh, it's called Bone by Jeff Smith," said Dylan. "I've read it before. It's totally awesome. Gonna get it again." The brothers each had as many books as they could carry at this point, so they went up to the desk to check out. One by one, they took books from their stacks and scanned them. Dogman, Investigators, Five Worlds. Dylan called out the names of his books as he scanned them. Dungeon Crawlers Academy, Book. Wait, Book? Dylan and William both looked closer at a strange book that had somehow made it onto Dylan's stack. It looked old. Very old. It was a light brown color, and one corner of the cover had been torn off. The title was simply Book, and there was a drawing of an old-fashioned crest on the back. The crest was a simple shield with two swords crossed behind it, and on the shield was an old-fashioned drawing of a lion. Dylan noticed that the book didn't have any markings to indicate it was a library book. No sticker on the spine or anything at all. "Where'd you get that book?" asked William. "I didn't," said Dylan. "It just ended up in my stack. Did you put it in my stack?" "No, I don't know anything about that old book," answered William. "It's not even a library book. Somebody probably just brought it in and lost it or something." Dylan stared at the book for a minute. It didn't make sense to him that this book could have gotten into his stack. He thought back through the entire time they'd been here at the library. He'd been carrying around his stack, adding to the pile as he walked around. He didn't even set his stack down on a table or anything. He wondered how the book ended up here. And it wasn't even a library book. "Come on, Dylan, we're leaving," said Bridget, his older sister, as she passed him with her own stack of books, already checked out. Dylan snapped out of it. He gave the strange book to the librarian to put in the lost and found. Then he checked out the rest of his books, dropped them in his bag, and went home. Later that day, Dylan and William were out in the backyard, tired and hot from playing. They sat under a tree, using their pocket knives to whittle sticks into spears and daggers and other things that made playing outside more fun. "Do you think we can go inside yet?" Dylan asked his brother. No. "Probably not," answered William, laying in the grass, using his backpack as a pillow. "Mom said we have to be outside. She said it was too nice to be inside." "Ugh," groaned Dylan. He reached over to his library bag and pulled out some books to read there in the yard. And to his surprise, that old book, titled Book, slid out along with all the other titles he checked out. "Hey, why'd you take that book? I thought somebody left it at the library," said William. "I didn't take this book. You saw me give it to the librarian. She took it right from my hand," Dylan said. He looked at William suspiciously. For a moment, he considered that perhaps his little brother was pranking him. But William wasn't the pranking type, and he didn't have a good poker face anyway. As Dylan tried to figure out this little mystery, he cracked the book and began reading. "The countryside is idyllic and calm. A gentle breeze bends the long grass and flutters the leaves in the trees. In one direction, you see an imposing castle, and in the other direction, you see a small village. Where do you go?" the book began. "Oh, hey, this is one of those books where you pick what the main characters do," said Dylan. William scooted closer out of curiosity. "What do you do?" he asked. "It says, do we go to the castle or to the village?" said Dylan. As the two considered their options, A strange feeling came over them both. A tug, a pull, an invisible force seemed to be sucking their bodies into the book. "Ah! What?" Dylan exclaimed, and he tossed the book to the ground. But the book remained open to that very page, and their bodies continued to get sucked in. Dylan and William panicked as they scooted on the ground, clawing at the grass and dirt, scrambling to get away from the book that was still drawing them in. And a second later, before they could scream or call out for help, they were completely sucked into the book and disappeared entirely. And the book just lay there on the ground, waiting for its next reader. Meanwhile, Dylan and William popped into existence in the very world that the book described. A beautiful countryside, a castle in the distance one way, a little village in the distance the other way. The brothers spent a few minutes looking all around and checking themselves out, making sure they were still all there, making sure this wasn't all a trick of the mind and that their house or neighborhood wasn't going to reappear after a blink, confirming that they were, in fact, someplace else entirely. "So, have you ever been here before?" William asked Dylan. "No, it's from the book," said Dylan. "We were sucked into the book, and now we are in the place that the book was about." "Where's that?" asked William. "I don't know. Some evil land ruled by evil wizards and evil witches and evil trolls, and we're going to be eating for dinner in that castle over there later tonight, probably," said Dylan, in a bit of a panic. But he saw how his outburst worried William, and he changed course. I don't know. It's just a place like any other place. Trees and grass and roads and houses. We'll just go to the little village and ask for help." "But we're inside of a magic book or something," said William. "We can't get back home." "Well, if you're able to get to a place, how are you not able to go back? Have you ever been anywhere ever where you weren't able to leave it?" asked Dylan. "We were able to come here, so we're able to go back. We just have to figure out how. And you brought your backpack, so we have snacks and stuff. We'll be fine." William considered Dylan's logic, and it made sense. If there was a way to a place, then there had to be a way back. "Well, why don't we go to the castle then?" asked William. "Because we're not royalty," said Dylan. "Maybe there's only royalty and rich people allowed in that castle. I don't know. The village just seems like a safer place to start." So Dylan and William began the long walk to the nearby village, hoping that it was not full of hungry trolls looking for dinner. The end. Thanks for listening, friends. The website is kidstoriespodcast.com. Send all your drawings and things to kidstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Adios.